everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Today I have a sewing project for you. I've been wanting to put a llama design into my Etsy shop for a while. They've been popular and I just haven't gotten around to it yet, but I thought I'm going to do it. And so I drew out a llama. And I actually am going to put a free printable in my blog, and the link will be down below, and also any supplies will be listed down below. But feel free to go over and print off the llama and create one. I think it'll be a lot of fun just to see what you can come up with. I've been watching a YouTuber who does, I can't think of her channel. I've been looking, but I'll try to look again and see if I can find it and I'll link it. But she saves all her scraps of paper and does a similar method with her paper. And I thought, well, you know, why can't you do that with scraps of fabric? I love the foundation quilting look and I love the strip quilting, but I don't have, it's just too labor intense. So I was trying to figure out a way to have that similar look, but in a way that's not gonna take so long, because I sell my creations and I want to keep the price down somewhat, keep them, you know, reasonable. But if you can see some of the detail in this, I did use free motion stitches, and then I also used some decorative stitches to really give it a little bit of texture and more detail. Now I did the words on here too, and that is also on your printable. This is my handwriting, so feel free to do your own thing or your own quote or whatever, or leave it off completely. One of the things I really have been wanting to work on this year is free motion words, and so I've been adding them. And this is just, I like you a lot with the double L's, the same as the double L in the word llama. This is what the Llama Printable will look like. I went ahead and I traced the back side because I want my llama facing this way on my pillow. Actually, this time I'm going to be making a wall hanging, but I want it facing the same way. Because we're going to reverse this and draw with the heat and bond, I want it facing that way. You can just take this to a light source, maybe your window, and trace on the back side. I also have a light source that I use, just a tabletop one that I use, and I will link this down below also. So that's your first step. And then take your heat and bond, and this is the heat and bond light, so it's the one in the purple package, and just trace the shape of the llama. Now we're not doing the words right now, we're just going to do the llama. You're going to want to be able to see it from this side, and so trace it possibly with a black marker or something that's going to show up. I have my llama drawn out on my heat and bond, and also the little blanket in a separate little piece up here. I also went through my scraps and picked out browns and grays and another pile of pinks, and this is what oranges, this is what's going to be for the blanket. And I have a lot more than I need for the blanket because I want to add possibly some of this to the bottom of the wall quilt. So that's what that is. Now to do this, what I found was an easy method is I flip this over so that the iron or the pebbly side is up, and I can see my design through here, so I can tell where I'm gluing. And then I am going to be using just white craft glue for this. This is just school glue, and you just pour on just in areas at a time. And I'm just spreading this with my fingers to get it smoothed out. And then you just start working with your pieces. I'm starting with my little llama here. And I just do long strips. Now once this school glue dries, it's fine underneath the sewing machine. I have not had any problems with it gumming up or anything. So, you know, if that's a concern of yours, you might want to test it. But once it's dry, I have not ever had a problem with it. And I'm going to continue with this and just cover this entire llama, and then we'll be back. I'm working on the little blanket right now, and I decided to add yarn to that just to give it another little element. So I'm going to stick that in the glue. Also to mention, all the widths are cut on this piece approximately a 1/2 inch wide, and the lengths vary. I think you can cut the widths a little bit wider if you were to have a bigger project, but I like the look of the narrower strips on this. So I'm almost done with the little blanket here. It's going to be on to the next step, which is cutting this little guy out. The llama and the blanket are completely covered now, and the glue is dried. I'm going to flip it over and just cut along the mark edges that I have here, the drawing. And now I'm ironing on the back side of the heat and bond to activate the glue on the heat and bond. I'm able to remove that back paper part of the heat and bond and turn this whole llama into a fusible applique. Just carefully removing this. I'm going to be applying or working on a piece of Ossenberg cloth. The spelling and will be down below, so you can take a look at that. It's fun to work with. It's very open weave. And it has like a texture to it, very similar to linen, and I like the speckle in it. There will be a layer of quilt batting. This is the Warm and Natural. And then the back is going to be another piece of the Ossenberg. So I'm just going to lay this on here and then use my iron to iron it on. I am going to put something on the bottom of this. So I'm going to put my little llama a little bit closer to the top. And I think I like that. I'm going to put the words right here. Take my iron and again just pressing this on. The next step that I want to do is to put my words onto my piece of fabric. And then I will be free motioning those words on, but I want them to show up quite well so that I don't get lost when I'm doing my free motion. I have discovered when I do free motion and I do my words, if I don't have them drawn on, I slant. It's just one of those things, and so I like to have it drawn on. To do that, I am going to be using the Friction pens by Pilot. These are pens that when you write on fabric, they show up really well, and then they will completely disappear with heat or with the iron. And I'll just show you on a piece of scrap here where you can just draw on it, and then with the iron it'll just completely disappear. Just heads up on this, you're going to want to test your fabric. Someone had mentioned that your lines will appear again once this gets cold, like if you have it hanging on an outside wall. Or I have not had any problems with that. I've used it on pillows in my sunroom, and our sunroom's not heated in Minnesota, and it's freezing out there. It's still freezing out there. It's getting warmer though. We are going to get spring. So that is just a heads up on that. Test your fabric, and that goes with everything you use, especially if you're doing hours and hours into a quilt or something. Test what you're doing. I would not recommend using these on a darker fabric, especially if it's a pigment dyed fabric, because it might take off some of the dye. Some of the things that I would recommend for a darker fabric would be the Heat Away Brush Off Stabilizer. This stuff works awesome for that. You can just trace your words just like just with a regular pen. Put it on your wherever you want it, and then this would be on the top of your fabric when you're doing your free motion. And then this just disappears, or you just heat it away and you just brush it away and it's completely gone, and your words or your letters would still be there. So that's a couple different options for you as far as the words. Now this Ossenberg, I can see through it quite well, but I am going to put it on my light source here, and then I can really see it. Just line it up the way I want it, getting it straight, and so it's not going crooked. And I'm just going to outline using my Friction pens here. I am off to my sewing machine now, and I'm going to be doing free motion first. I'm going to be meander stitching the llama and also the blanket, and then free motion stitching the letters. The words I'm going to put in dark brown, and for the llama I'm just going to do a variegated thread. This is just a multi variegated thread in browns and tans. And then for the little blanket, this is the color Gumdrops or Bubble Gum, one of the two, and it's just a different variety of yellows and blues and pinks and purples. So that is the one I'm going to be using for the blanket. I had a question, which was a great question, and I just sometimes don't remember to hit on everything, but when you're using the cone thread like this and on your regular sewing machine, and if you don't have a built-in cone hold threader, this is, and I'll link this down below too, but it's just something that you set up behind or beside your sewing machine so that your cone threads will fit on there, and you just basically, and then thread your sewing machine that way. Yeah, this is like, I would never be without one of these. I use it all the time. So that is what that is for. And I'm going to be putting my free motion foot on. I'll have my feed dogs dropped so that I will be doing the motion, and I'll set the camera up too so you can see what I'm doing. And I'll be back. I do have my two layers here. I have my top layer, and then I have the batting. I'm going to start, and I'm going to do just a few back and forth stitches, and then I'm going to cut my thread. And then go ahead and just meander stitch down these stripes and all along this llama, keeping in the browns with this thread, and then I'll switch to the other thread for the little blanket. I switched to my dark brown thread, and next I'm going to be doing the words. I'm also going to outline it in dark brown, add the nose. I have this Friction pen again. I'm going to add the nose and just darken in with a thread. I also want to do, notice on the example how it has the leg line. I'm going to put that leg line in with my pencil so I don't forget to do it when I'm stitching. The back leg also has one, and the hoofs too I'll darken in with my thread. I've changed my thread to the gumball color, and I'm going to add a piece of lace on the bottom of this blanket just to simulate a little bit like a fringe look. And I'm going to be doing the same thing, just meander stitching the pieces on, just kind of going over all the strips and meander stitching the lace on. And then it'll be over to my other sewing machine where I'll be able to do some decorative stitching. And the decorative stitching, I'm going to be using the same colored threads. I'm going to be using the bubblegum thread on the blanket and the variegated brown llama. I finished up my stitching and added a little heart applique. I just thought it needed something a little over there. But you can see the decorative stitching really adds a fun detail to this piece. And also I did the decorative stitching all the way down on some of the strips on the llama. I'm not really happy about how I just want to darken the hoofs up a bit and also the nose, and I'm going to do that with a pit pen. The pit pens are nice because they are permanent. They work well if they don't bleed into the fibers of the fabric. They sit on top, which I really like. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. And then another thing is I'm gonna draw the little eye and the lashes on with a gel pen. And this is a glaze gel pen by Sakura, and it sits on the top, and it's dimensional almost, which is going to be a nice little feature for the eyeball. I'm still able to see some of my pen or my friction pen underneath these letters. It's hard to get exactly right on the drawing. So again, I'm just going to take my iron and I'm going to get rid of any of the lines that are still showing. And it's very simple to remove with those pens. If you're using the Sakura gel pens to do any of the drawing or the detail work, like I just put on his little eyeball, turned out really cute. But you want to leave these dry a little bit. They stay wet for a while. Otherwise you're going to have a smudged eyelash all over the back of the mini quilt, because this is the next step, is to put the right sides together. I'm gonna be sewing a 1/2 inch all the way around, leaving an opening at the bottom to flip it. So I'll be back and after I get my sewing done to flip. I'm clipping all the corners and getting some of the bulk, and then turning this and poking out those corners, rolling out those seams, and then ironing this flat. I will be top stitching going all the way around and adding some more details to the bottom of this little project. I've edge stitched, and now I want to add something to the bottom with the same strips as the little blanket. So I'm going to add the glue again and spread that out and lay the strips on top, very similar to what I did on the back of the Heat and Bond. But another thing I want to do is to add the last strip right to the bottom is I'm going to add this lace. And I think that's going to just really finish it off. And take it to the sewing machine in free motion and then do a couple more lines of the decorative stitch. And then I'm going to be back. I think my little llama's going to be almost done. And here's the final stitching on that. I love the way it just finishes off the bottom of this. To hang my little piece, I am going to be using these bulldog clips. They're just like a large binder clip. Covering it with a little bit of chalk paint. So this is my second layer of the chalk paint. Just using a makeup sponge to get this paint on. I find the easiest way to apply this paint is to keep it away from your hands. I managed to do that anyway, but I have just put it on a piece of cardboard. One last thing I did was to add a fabric yo-yo to my binder clip, and I just attached it with a tacky glue. To give you an idea of the finished look, I think that this is an idea that you can just go with. Like, it would be so cute using the same thing maybe in some whimsical looking birds or an owls, or even like a simple shape like a heart. But so give it a try, and if you happen to do a llama, like I mentioned before, please tag me on Instagram. I would love to see your creations. I hope you learned something today, and thank you so much for joining me. Happy creating!